So this is part 3 of my video recorded statement to the press who are covering the federal raid of Byron Brown's tax-exempt nonprofits. I've given a brief history. I'm not going into all the details. I'm going into quite a few details, but basically what I'm doing is going into the details with me as a DNC whistleblower that got his office raided. And just to show that I'm not an attention-grabbing, just seeking attention or some sort of notoriety. I'm still a detective in the field investigating RICO violations and what has now turned into multiple homicides, felony homicides that resulted in felonies in the state of Florida and the state of Missouri that were sanctioned by both Republicans and Democrats, and some of the deaths did get news attention. It doesn't matter that the attorney that originally launched this investigation, just because he isn't paying me and he's actually fighting against and actually now obstructing the investigation that he launched, the other attorneys who jumped in to try to cover his butt until he got clean and sober, we didn't realize how bad the situation really was. It doesn't matter. I'm a whistleblower against him and his father. And they're still using my intellectual properties and profiting from it. They're just making back alley deals behind my back where they profit. And they even made a movie called Roman J. Israel about Chad and I, only they portrayed the person of color who's a legal savant. They had a man and black instead of a Native American woman. And they actually made him an attorney. They made him a member of the bar, but they still portrayed it as him being the legal savant who was the genius behind a civil rights attorney who sacrificed everything for the good of other people. And then they turned around and made it look like he violated attorney-client privilege, when in our case, it was actually Chad violating attorney-client privilege. Chad wasn't just my boyfriend, and he wasn't just my employer. He didn't just violate me as an employee by going around saying that I stole stuff from him, or that I was an addict, or that I was psycho. He violated attorney-client privilege. He was my attorney. And he was going around saying things behind my back that weren't true to hide the fact that he was an unethical, exploitative, rapist, child molesting prick. Well, now you're calling him a child molester. He was recorded telling me that he represented pedophiles and other sex offenders, and that he... And I'm going to quote him, "I fucked with those victims' heads so bad they didn't know what happened to them." And he was talking about very small child molestation victims. He got off on screwing with their head, so they really didn't understand what happened to them, so he could get those pedophiles off those charges. Now, you brag about something like that to me, I'm sorry, you're a child molester. I wrote a letter to the Orlando Sex Crimes Unit. I don't really know what their sex crimes unit is called, or if that's really even what it's called, but I let them know that he bragged about tampering with the victims so he could get those pedophiles off. And Chad confessed to me that he had a history of being molested as a kid at his babysitter's house, who pimped him out to pedophiles for whatever profit that babysitter got. And now he's grown up, and now he's making himself feel better by doing that to other victims. So he's already confessed on our audio recordings to rape victim tampering and child rape victim tampering. Do you think he's got any problem fucking with me as his rape victim? Do you think the powerful people, like the people at the NAACP and Val Demings and her, especially as a former Orlando police chief or Orlando PD, or anybody in the Republican Party is going to have any problem covering up that he does that, that they associate with this trash, this child molesting trash? White privileged prick who gets off on murdering his Native American girlfriend because she's gay, because I wouldn't kiss his white privileged ass. He knows I'm a child trafficking victim. He knows my father was threatening me, and Darla Munoz was threatening me, and Darla Munoz Natiloi was Klan. Her father was in bed with the people who were molesting me. They committed murders together. They committed, I don't know how many lynchings. My dad had me record. He had me recording the cops and the lawyers and judges and all those Mizzou Klan boys committing lynchings so he could turn around and throw it up in their face when my mother tried to charge him with domestic violence. So, Chad Cronin, and then so basically what happened in New York was to cover up what happened in Orlando with Chad Cronin and what happened with Beth Sweeney and their sexual misconduct and their racist discrimination and sexual abuse. We got two very ugly Me Too scandals that involve healthcare fraud, and these frauds involve Republicans and Democrats in both major parties. I get to New York, I have a friend there who's a veteran, and he says, come up here, go to Roswell, they will help you, Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center. I get up there, I had been in Orlando several months, and I was dropping off all the audio and video recordings to those other attorneys, and feeling up the situation, because I really didn't think Chad was dead, and I was like, if he's dead, I'm going to get, and also, because this is an employer-employee situation, I sent multiple emails to Chad's inventory attorney and the other attorney that Chad got on that he referred me to, Laura Maria Pichardo Cruz, who knew damn well, as a public benefits lawyer, that I shouldn't be getting Social Security for schizophrenia. I applied for Social Security. I recorded the whole thing. I applied for Social Security for stage 4 cancer in Missouri, and ultimately what they did was, instead of doing they did no medical exam whatsoever. I recorded the psych exam, and she said, you're fine, you don't have any psych disabilities, but I'm still going to recommend that they give you Social Security because your stage 4 cancer, it's going to take at least a year before you're anywhere near any shape to be working. So I'm still going to recommend that you get the benefits because of the medical. And I recorded that. Well, they never had me get a medical exam. Roughly 3 to 4 weeks after I applied, they approved me. And when I recorded the call, I have what's called the automatic call recording app on my phone. They said, you've been approved. And they made it sound like I was approved for stage 4 cancer. They didn't tell me that they used falsified medical records from Family Health Center to do to qualify me for schizophrenia. And I didn't even realize that had happened until I went down and tried to fill my heart medication. And they said, you've got a Medicaid number, but they're refusing to pay for it. They're saying that they've refused to cover you. So I called and they said, we didn't see any evidence of schizophrenia to support the diagnosis, to support your disability. So I called the disability, I called Social Security, and the caseworker wasn't there. I said, what diagnosis did they do? She said, schizophrenia. I said, I'm not schizophrenic. And just so you understand what that means, is I have another video uploaded that explains when you get Social Security benefits, you have to prove to the Social Security Administration that every single type of therapy, from drug therapy to behavioral therapy, counseling, social work, no matter what you did, that person cannot work. And you have to prove that you've tried for years multiple therapies, multiple medications, multiple types of psychotherapy or behavioral therapy to get them back to work. What the Missouri Medicaid Board saw was they never once prescribed any medication for schizophrenia. They never once sent me to a psychiatrist for schizophrenia. So they rejected the adjudication. They said, you haven't proven that this woman is disabled. Under the diagnosis that you're saying she's disabled, you're saying she's got schizophrenia, yet she has no history of being treated for schizophrenia. So at that point, I immediately called the Medicaid fraud hotline at the Missouri Attorney General's office, Josh Hawley's office, and I spoke with Matthew Smith for 45 minutes. It was recorded. And I broke down how the fraud scam worked and how all my recordings implicated Dr. Joe Parks and Governor Jay Nixon. And then eventually I went online and filled out a whistleblower claim as an investigator for the law offices of Chad Cronin, who worked for the DNC and had all these powerful connections. And his father was a board member at one of the hospitals that knew I had cancer, wasn't treating me. And I got a whistleblower ID number. And they sent me a whistleblower package. And then eventually, once I called Boston Homicide to tell them that I had conclusive evidence and a whistleblower number that they were systematically making false psychiatric diagnoses and forcing people to take medication based on that false diagnosis, and that they likely tried to justify refusing to do a rape investigation on Tasha Manu Curry by saying that she was mentally ill. That was all false, and they probably likely sent falsified medical records to her Boston hospital that got her killed. That's felony murder. As soon as I left a message at Josh Hawley's office that I had contacted Boston Homicide and that they interviewed me and encouraged me to call them and speak with one of their detectives, within 24 hours I got a threatening email from Matthew Smith at the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit saying that I had impersonated one of his, that I had claimed to be a representative of their office, and that I was not to contact his office again. Well, number one, you don't tell anybody not to contact a public office. Number two, nobody would file a whistleblower claim as an investigator for a DNC attorney and then turn around and claim to work for Josh Hawley, who was a Republican, who was so ridiculous in that he got recorded stating that he was at some white supremacist church saying that human trafficking was caused by the sexual revolution, which is the women's liberation and LGBT portion of the civil rights movement. And it was so stupid that the Republicans, and he was running against Claire McCaskill for the Senate seat, and Claire McCaskill said, I went to law school, and I don't, human trafficking's been around since humans have been around, and it certainly wasn't caused by the civil rights movement, especially the portion for the LGBT and the women. And another Republican told him to shut his mouth because he was going to end up handing the election to Claire McCaskill because what he was saying was so stupid. And I emailed Matthew Smith and I said, how, nobody in their right mind is going to file a whistleblower claim as a DNC investigator for a DNC attorney and then turn around and claim that they work for a Republican gay-bashing attorney general, especially to a clinic that knew I worked for that DNC attorney. And that's why the lady was trying to sleep with me in the first place, because I worked for this big shot civil rights scholar. You don't even make any sense, and how dare you tell me not to contact a public office again? So this goes to show you that the Republicans are protecting, the Trump Republicans are protecting the Clinton Democrats. And just so you know, Trump is historically a Democrat who publicly endorsed Hillary Clinton for POTUS in 2008. And I'll have one more statement.